Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Today I'm going to repot a Paphiopedilum. Now, this is one that was pointed out when we looked over all of the ones that I've got on the within the Sunday chat as part of our genus spotlight, and this one was picked out as just having very few if any roots and is staying wet far too long. Basically, this repot will be a little bit different because I don't expect to have to do a lot of root trimming because I don't expect there will be many, and it hasn't long been potted. The reason for repotting it is to change the media rather than a normal repot where roots have filled the pot and that sort of thing. So I just need to change the media. Now this is Paphiopedilum helvetia, which is in fact a primary cross, so it's quite close to actual species, and it's a cross between Chamberlainianum and Philippinense. And it's a strange combination because one's a cool to cold grower and one's a warm to hot grower. And the combination of those two, I presume, produces a hybrid that's in the middle somewhere. Probably a hybrid that could never possibly be reproduced in the wild. They come from different parts basically. So, but yeah, it's a multifloral, a very attractive bloom if we ever see it. But so far I haven't. It was bought as a reasonable plant at, I think it was at the Orchid Society auction, reasonably certain, and I don't know why it was put in the auction. I don't know why the person was selling it. Maybe they already had several and wanted to downsize. I don't know. But I've got it. We'll turn the camera around and have a look. So if I drop it down a bit and lower the whole thing as well. Somewhere like that so you can see what's going on. Right, so this one was picked on because it stays wet too long, which it is now, and in addition to that it has pale leaves, and it has pale leaves on older parts of the plant mainly. Newer parts of the plant seem to be growing or pale but better green. It's in the mix I normally use to try and induce roots, which is a mix of small bark perlite and sphagnum moss. Well, at least one of these plants comes from limestone outcrops and grows on rocks as a lithophyte, which probably means it's objecting to the sphagnum moss, which would be slightly acidic. So that's another good reason for lifting it out and seeing what we get. Now I suspect this media will just fall away, leaving few, if any, decent roots. Yeah, there's no good roots here, not really. There are some that are viable, but they're not what I would call good roots. Also some debris around the base of the plant that can do with coming off. So what have we got then? We have signs of brand new roots coming, but not a lot. So, as expected, not many roots at all. So I'm holding it very gently. I'm trying to do as little disturbance as possible. Especially now I know there are new roots coming down from the base. This is a new root here. But there are a few that are papery. there's a few of these roots are gone, so we will need to trim a little bit, but not too much. So this one's gone, that can come off. That one's gone. How are we doing here? That's gone. Big fat root there too, never mind. So's that. These are just basically it's the old part of the plant that's just gone. But as you can see, there is a new root coming here and a new root coming here. So it is finally starting to grow some roots. Those roots now need to get into a media that is non-acidic, there to progress. Nonetheless, for a plant that size, that's a very small and poor root system. I've still got a few to go yet. I think that's about it. We'll leave room for the new ones to come through. So there we go. So in fact, this now to me looks quite a small, see there's one of the new growths here is actually rotted. Staying too wet. I do need to get that growth out because it's touching others. I'm just going to pull it. See if it will come out. Yes. Right, so we've got several new growths coming. We've got a whole area of new growths coming up here. At least, well, 2, possibly 3, a third one coming up the side there. We've got an area here with new growths coming and also up through there. So there are plenty of new growths coming. So now I was planning on putting this straight back in the same pot, but although it's going to look a bit silly, it's going to go in a smaller pot. Mainly because I don't want this staying wet too long, which is what it's doing now. So it's just going to rot the base, and I want a better environment for these few new roots that are coming out. So we'll put that to one side. We'll have a bit of a clear up, and I'll be back with some media and another pot smaller than that one. I'm going to try and get it in the smallest pot I can for now. So I'll be back. Okay, so we're going to have this is quite a small pot relatively speaking, and the plant is only just going to fit in there. Literally only just. It's going to sit on the top, but hopefully those new roots will appreciate being in a different media. Now I've got some, this is medium bark. I want some of that in there to make sure there's plenty of air. I don't want this staying wet. And then the majority of it is going to be small, which I am almost out of. And then we are going to have a large quantity of these grow stones. Why do I think I need a lot of grow stones? One of these species comes from limestone outcrops and would need a neutral, possibly even slightly alkaline base to grow in, to go with, you know, the equivalent of the limestone. Now bark, once it starts to break down, will be slightly acidic. The older it gets, the more acidic it can become, especially if it stays wet. But when it's new, it's only very, very slightly acidic. These grow stones are made from expanded glass. They are pH neutral and cannot change. So that means my media is going to stay more neutral than it would without the grow stones. So that's the idea of putting those in. This is going to be quite difficult to do, but we will try. We'll just sit the plant on the top. There's a position in the middle of the plant where I can rest my thumb, and that will hold the plant still so that we can just... The media is dry, so it will naturally fall into the gaps in the pot. If it was wet, it wouldn't do that. And I'm just letting it fall down the side of the pot and then tapping it so that it falls down. Few gaps around the sides. It's not sitting on there very well. Need some more down that side. So there we are. The base of the plant is just touching. It's not buried by any means, it's just touching, and it's not very firm, so I will have to handle this incredibly gently until those roots get going and actually start to hold the plant in place, which they will do. They will do that eventually. So this pot's going to stay a lot drier. It'll be wet when it gets watered, and then it should dry out relatively quickly because there's less media in total in the pot, so there isn't as much to hold moisture and stay wet too long. The plant is just touching the base, which will encourage root growth to go down into the pot. So that's it. No air gaps, and it's loosely sitting on there. Now I know one thing that I'm going to have to change is the black pot I got. If I drop that in the black pot, it's going to sink. Yeah? So I'm going to put something in the bottom of that black pot so that it rests in the black pot and doesn't sink down in it. So I don't even want to put the plant down really, because these leaves hang down. Let me see if I can put that out of the way for now, and then we can put the plant on the edge of the table, because it's got two leaves that hang right down. They would push the plant out of the pot, so I've got to get it in a position where that doesn't happen. So yeah, we need something inside of there so that it can sit in the black pot. The reason for going in the black pot is to stop the light getting to the pot and forming algae. Now as it happens, no algae is going to form on that pot for a very long time, because it hasn't got the right sort of substance, and it's not going to stay soaking wet. So it probably wouldn't form algae anyway, but I keep my clear pots inside black pots to stop the algae growing. That's the only reason. It's got nothing to do with, you know, anything other than that. It's just to stop the algae growing on the pot. So there we go. That's a much smaller pot now, much less media to stay wet, and hopefully those few new roots that there are going to get going, and hopefully that will, you know, become a nice well-rooted plant in the not too distant future. Some of my other Paphiopedilums have grown really good root systems in exactly the same mix that this one was in, but they vary. This is the problem. You can't say that all paths need to be treated the same, because they're not. We've got a hot grower and a cold grower in the mix of these two. So this hybrid is a mix of a hot and a warm grower. Well, if I had those two species, they wouldn't be treated the same, would they? One's a hot grower, one's a cool grower. One grows on rocks, one doesn't. One grows in a limestone environment, one partially does. So you've got to look at what your plants are up to and where they come from and how they grow and what they grow in, if you can find that out, which is not always easy. So there we go. That's potting up a Paphiopedilum in a very open mix with grow stones that stay pH neutral and some bark that is new and will not turn acidic for some considerable time, a few new roots, plenty of new growths that should push on more new roots as the plant grows. So hopefully that's a form of a rescue. So that's it for today, and I've just had a delivery, which is heavy, and it's the felt for my shed in the garden. Now I'm going to have a look at it because that's a job I've never done. I've never felted a roof before. I've seen people do it. I've watched the man next door do it, although he was doing it on virtually a flat roof, whereas I'm doing it on a apex roof. But I've seen it done enough times. It's come with roof tacks. I've got a hammer. I've got scissors to cut the felt. I've got all I need. I know it sounds daft. I just need to pluck up the courage to do it, because it does mean getting up on the roof to actually do it. The first piece I can get at quite easily. But then the next piece has got to go up over the apex and has got to be nailed the other side. So I've got to get up on the roof to do it. So I've got to pluck up the courage to get out there and have a go. And it needs to be done when the sun is shining on a warm day. Why is that? I hear you scream. Why work outside in the heat when you don't have to? Well, in this case you do have to. The heat and the sun will make the felt go soft, and it'll be easier to bend over the edges and fold in the corners as opposed to if it was cold. So that's the reason for doing it in the heat. I'll have to put up with it, won't I? I'm hoping it's not going to take long. Anyway, I'm not sure that's going to be today because the time's getting on today. I'd like to do it when the sun's round there and I feel like doing it. Basically, it's not urgent. So that's that, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.